Discover the incredible, life-changing ways 100,000 families thrived without air conditioning. Joe never imagined he would become a beacon of hope for the families in his small Midwest town. With 3 kids, Zoe, Alex, and little Mia, his days were a whirlwind of mechanic shifts and bedtime stories. But as summer enveloped the town, the brutal heat transformed the familiar comfort of family gatherings into an unbearable battle against sweltering nights. That fateful day hit like a thunderclap. A relentless heatwave crashed over the community, and the old power grid finally gave in. Darkness filled homes, and the air thickened, smothering laughter and love in stifling silence. Many families, including Joe's, faced the oppressive humidity with resignation and worry, wondering how they'd manage without cooling relief. As complaints and despair rippled through the community, something stirred inside Joe. He could feel a tempest of frustration brewing, yet it ignited a fire in him. "We can't let this beat us," he declared to his kids one evening, their faces smeared with sweat yet glistening with the pure delight of hope. That spark became the heart of a movement. He rallied neighbors to share backyards, hosting barbecues that sizzled with laughter, and spirited water balloon fights that turned the heat into refreshingly joyful chaos. Joe realized that this hardship, rather than tearing them apart, had the potential to forge an unbreakable bond among families who felt invisible amid the grind of life. But just as the community spirit flourished, Joe received heaving news that felt like a punch to the gut. He was laid off. The weight of financial uncertainty pressed against his chest, filling the air with a cold dread. Memories of tossing the ball with Alex, singing lullabies to Mia, and watching Zoe dive into books surfaced like bright feathers against the stark reality he faced. Staring at the empty spaces around him, he felt the fragility of everything he had worked for slip away. Could he still provide for these hopeful little souls who relied so fiercely on his strength? As the nights grew long, shadows of doubt crept in. He lay awake, grappling with agonizing questions. What if this was it? What if he couldn't rise again? Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes, the silence deafening. Yet amid the self-doubt, a beautiful realization blossomed. His friends, neighbors, those very families he had rallied, were standing firm, supporting each other in ways he couldn't have imagined. They gathered supplies, talked solutions, and reminded him that resilience isn't just an individual trait, it's a collective strength. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Slowly, Joe felt the embers of hope glow brighter. The heart of the community measured in laughter, the vibrant spirit of togetherness shielding their hearts from despair. As they reorganized barbecues and brainstormed solutions, he realized that while he was down, he wasn't out. But doubts lingered. Could he truly lean on others without losing his sense of self? Could he embrace the strength of the community and redefine what it meant to be a father? As summer waned, they all braced for the next wave of challenges. Would they rise again, together? Or would the haunting uncertainty tear them apart one too many times? The air crackled with anticipation, and Joe stood at this pivotal crossroads, on the cusp of an emotional storm, ready to unveil the strength he had found among them. The next morning dawned with a golden light spilling across the horizon, but the brightness felt distant, overshadowed by the weight of Joe's thoughts. He stood on his porch, gripping a mug of coffee as he watched the neighborhood stir awake. Where once children ran freely, laughter spilling like sunlight, Joe now saw faces masked in worry and fatigue. The heat didn't just weigh down bodies, it weighed heavy on spirits. "Hey, Dad!" Zoe called out, her voice crisp and cheerful. She bounded down the steps, clutching the family dog, Max, in her arms. "Can we play outside today?" Joe forced a smile, returning to the moment. "Sure, kiddo. Just keep an eye on Mia, okay?" As Zoe dashed off to gather her siblings, Joe felt a pang of guilt. He wanted to be the father that inspired adventure and hardened resolve, but all he could muster was an anxious heart and a tired frame. With a heavy sigh, he took a sip of his lukewarm coffee, feeling its bitter taste linger as he watched his children play. The backyard had transformed into a makeshift oasis, complete with a kiddie pool filled with cool water and a large canvas that protected them from the relentless sun. Alex charged into the pool with a splash, giggling as Mia squealed, splashing back. It sent ripples of joy through Joe's heart, a reminder of the laughter he nearly lost. Yet, the sound of laughter couldn't drown out the whisper of fear in his mind. Bills were piling up. The job search was disheartening, prospects dwindling like the summer days. And while neighbors were quick to lend a hand, Joe couldn't shake the feeling that he was draining their resources, and soon they'd grow weary of him. "Joe!" A voice called, snapping him from his thoughts. It was Sarah, the neighbor from down the street. "We're gathering families at the park later. We want to brainstorm about the heat and see what we can do together. Count us in," Joe said, surprising even himself with the enthusiasm in his voice. Maybe community strength was what he needed. It wasn't about being the hero alone, it was about sharing responsibilities, sharing burdens, and ultimately, sharing hope. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the lawn, they gathered at the park. Families circled up, children darting around while adults exchanged ideas, frustrations, and most importantly solutions. Joe felt the energy shift. As they spoke, hope flared higher than before. Perhaps they could band together, get creative. Maybe a neighborhood cooling station, or rotating cool-off visits. The conversation heated up, but not from the sun. It was filled with innovation and camaraderie. Ideas flew like fireflies at dusk, lighting the darkening sky with anticipation. But amidst the excitement, Joe's eyes fell on a woman sitting quietly at the edge of the group. She looked familiar. He'd seen her on the sidelines before, but she had her eyes cast down as if the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. "Hey, are you all right?" Joe approached her softly. She looked up, startled. "I'm fine, just overwhelmed. Just know you're not alone. We're all in this together." A flicker of gratitude sparked in her eyes, and Joe felt a warmth spreading in his chest. As the meeting concluded and families offered supportive hugs before drifting back to their homes, Joe felt a renewed energy surging through him. With each passing day, he knew they were carving out a path of resilience, one that would redefine what it meant to band together. But even as optimism swelled, a thought loomed large: what if this unity was tested in ways he never expected? An unexpected storm could roll in, threatening to unravel everything they'd built. As he headed home, a sense of determination sparked anew within him. Tomorrow held promise, but the storm could be lurking just around the corner. What lay ahead? Success or failure? Would they fortify their bonds, or would the tide of reality pull them under? The next day greeted Joe with the same golden sunlight, but today it felt different, as if it held a promise of change. He stepped outside, coffee in hand, ready to face whatever came his way. Zoe was already out on the lawn with Max, the dog bounding all around her, as if he could sense the shift in Joe's mood. "Dad! Come play!" she shouted, her laughter light and contagious. He chuckled and set his coffee down, letting the warmth flow through him. "All right, one game of tag." They ran around, dodging and weaving, their laughter lifting the weight that had clung to Joe for days. For a moment, he forgot about the bills, forgot about his job search. It was just him and his kids, lost in a whirlwind of joy. But even as he chased Zoe, a nagging thought hovered. Today might feel lighter, but tomorrow there were still mountains to climb. After their impromptu game, Joe gathered the kids for breakfast, the chatter filling the house with energy. "We should make a plan for the neighborhood project," he suggested. The kids perked up at the mention of working together. "Can we sell ice lemonade?" Mia piped up, her eyes wide with excitement. "Great idea." Joe laughed. That'll definitely help us beat the heat. We could even donate some of the money we make. Zoe's face lit up. And we can put up a sign to get more people involved. The kids brainstormed ideas as Joe felt a sense of pride wash over him. His heart swelled as he realized this was more than just an afternoon activity, it was a lesson in community, cooperation, and hope. Later, sitting at the park with a group of neighbors, they began to flesh out their ideas. The ice lemonade stand morphed into a full-blown community event. Families pitched in, each contributing in their own unique way. Someone suggested games for the kids, another proposed a small talent show. Laughter filled the air, and Joe couldn't help but smile at the spark igniting around him. Yet, lurking in the background was that same woman from yesterday, her expression hesitant as she scribbled down thoughts. Joe's heart tugged at him, she seemed to drift away from the group, distant despite the bustling energy. He decided he couldn't let it be. "Hey! Mind if I join you?" he asked, approaching her gently. She looked up, surprise etched on her features. "I'm just trying to think of ideas," she murmured, keeping her gaze down. The vulnerability in her voice cut through him. "You know, your voice matters here. Everyone's ideas matter. You've got this." A flicker of defiance sparked in her eyes. "You really think so?" "I know so." In that moment, something shifted. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, and she offered a small smile, her eyes glinting with something other than just weariness. "But what if I fail?" she whispered, barely audible. Joe paused, feeling that familiar tightness in his chest. Sometimes you have to risk failing to discover something amazing. We're all in this together, right? As the two of them headed back to the energetic group, he felt a little lighter. They stood together, ready to brainstorm, and together they could support one another. As the meeting wound down, a new sense of purpose filled the air. Yet, under all that enthusiasm, darkness brewed. Joe couldn't shake the feeling that their newfound spirit might soon face unimaginable challenges. What would happen if one person faltered? What if a storm, both literal and metaphorical, threatened to sweep in and dismantle their fragile progress? He stood up, scanning the crowd as laughter echoed around him, but his heart raced with a deeper fear. Was the community ready for the storm they couldn't yet see? The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park. Joe lingered for a moment, witnessing the joyous chaos around him. Children ran freely, their laughter mingling with the chatter of adults planning and sharing ideas. But the tension in his chest tightened. He knew that a storm loomed on the horizon, both in the clouds and in life. "Hey, Joe!" a voice called out, breaking through his thoughts. It was Frank, an enthusiastic neighbor with a can-do spirit. "We're thinking of starting the talent show early. Zoe mentioned her dance." Joe smiled, pushing away his worries, but the thought of competition gnawed at him. "Sure. She's really excited about it." "Good. We're counting on you to get the word out. The more, the merrier." As Frank moved on, Joe watched Zoe pulling Mia into a playful spin. The sight warmed his heart, but his mind wandered to that woman, the one still standing alone at the edge of the gathering. There was something deeper behind her hesitant smile. "Mind if I borrow Max?" he muttered to himself, giving the dog a quick pat before making his way to her. "Hey again. Did you think of any ideas?" Joe asked, his voice softer this time. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "I was thinking about a story time for the kids. Maybe a themed reading." "Sounds great. Kids love stories." But her eyes dropped again, that familiar uncertainty creeping back in. "What if nobody shows up? What if they laugh at me?" "First of all, I'll be there," he said firmly, fighting the urge to ignore the pain in his chest. "And secondly, you won't know unless you try. Remember, it's all about creating something together." A smirk tugged at her lips. "Are you always this optimistic?" "Only on days that end in Y," he quipped, lightening the mood. She chuckled, her defenses beginning to melt away. "All right, I'll do it." Just as they bonded over shared anxieties, the sky turned a shade grayer. A gust of wind swept through the park, rustling the leaves and sending a chill over Joe's spine. Instinctively, he looked toward the horizon, the clouds thickening ominously. "Uh-oh," he said, realizing that the storm wasn't just coming, it was almost upon them. As he turned to the crowd, he noticed people starting to pack up their things, glancing nervously at the darkening sky. Laughter faded, replaced by hurried conversations. Joe struggled to fight down the wave of dread as he called out, "Hey everyone. Let's make sure we get those plans solidified. We can't let a little rain dampen our spirit." He could feel the uncertainty ripple through the group, like an unspoken agreement that their enthusiasm was about to be tested. The commotion grew as families gathered their kids and began heading for shelter. Joe felt the slight chill of fear racially creeping in the pit of his stomach, competing with his earlier elation. "Let's meet back tomorrow," he shouted, raising his voice above the fading energy. Everyone nodded, now a fragile determination masked by tension. As he watched the last of the families drift away, he glanced over at the woman, who remained a few feet behind him. She met his eyes, and for a moment, both shared a recognition of the weight of uncertainty. "Tomorrow might be rough," Joe said, stepping toward her, "but we have to stay strong. This storm will pass." Together, they stood on the edge of the park, their hearts heavy with an understanding that the real challenge might just be beginning. With the storm approaching and a community growing, the question hung in the air: would their bonds weather this unexpected turbulence? What would it take for them truly to thrive? The rain began to patter on the ground, a soft, steady drumroll that grew louder as the first drops turned into a steady downpour. Joe watched as the once bustling park quickly emptied, umbrellas springing open like flowers in a sudden storm. He felt a pang of disappointment wash over him as he turned back to the woman beside him. "I'm sorry," she said, looking up at him with a mixture of regret and confusion. "I didn't mean to ruin the day." "No, it's not your fault." Joe offered a reassuring smile, but inside, doubt tangled with his optimism. He knew that the chaos they were facing wasn't just in the weather. It was in their lives, in every conversation left unsaid, every dream tucked away in a corner untouched by light. "We could still have fun, he suggested, attempting to elevate the mood with a playful tone. "How about a little indoor talent show?" Her brow furrowed slightly. "Inside the community center?" "Why not? We've got stories to tell, songs to sing. This storm may be inconvenient, but it doesn't have to drown our spirits." As he spoke, a flicker of hope sparked in her eyes. "You really think people would show up?" "I think if there's a chance to escape the rain and connect with each other, they'll come running." He felt the words flow from him. The more he said them, the more he believed them. Determination started to edge out his earlier fear. Maybe this was the moment they all needed, a chance to bond beyond their usual routines. "I could help you with the story time. Your idea is brilliant. We just need to promote it." Her hesitant smile returned, illuminating the shifting shadows of worry. "You think so?" "Absolutely." Joe felt the corners of his heart loosen as he watched her enthusiasm flicker back. They quickly formulated a plan, jotting down ideas and tasks between bursts of thunder. As the storm raged outside, in those moments, laughter punctuated their efforts, a sound that pushed back the dark clouds looming above. They were just two people, united by the promise of something greater than themselves. When they finally finished, Joe glanced around the rain-soaked park, now transformed into a world of possibility, even amid the chaos. "Tomorrow, we'll be here," he declared, certainty strong in his voice. "We'll showcase our community spirit." "Together," she echoed, her eyes brightening. As they walked toward the parking lot, beads of rain glistening on their jackets, a sense of hope filled the air. But just as they reached for the car doors, a sudden crack of lightning illuminated the sky, and something heavy settled in Joe's chest again. The storm outside mirrored the turmoils they each faced in their lives. "Hey," he said, glancing sideways at her as they settled into their seats, "can I ask you something? What made you hesitant to share your talent with the story time?" She hesitated, her gaze shifting to the windshield where raindrops raced against each other. Finally, she sighed, a sound filled with depth. "I guess I worried it wouldn't matter. That maybe I wouldn't be enough." Her words hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. And for Joe, the weight of her doubt resonated deeply. "We'll find a way to make it matter then," he said, a fire lighting within him, "because our voices matter." "Yours definitely does." They exchanged glances, a silent promise forged in that shared space. The storm was far from over, and neither were the storms in their lives. But together, they could build something warm and bright between the raindrops. As he drove away, Joe's thoughts spun a blend of anxiety and tenacious resolve. Tomorrow was fast approaching, and he could sense that with the turning of the clouds, new opportunities might arise. Would the community gather, as he hoped? Would they rise above their fears to truly celebrate their talents? With each passing mile, a crucial realization settled deep within him. The true challenge wouldn't just be organizing the show, it might be inspiring others to embrace their own vulnerabilities. And with that, Joe couldn't shake the feeling that the real storm was just beginning, not in the sky, but within their hearts. What truths would emerge when they brought their dreams into the light? The next day arrived, the sky still heavy with clouds, but the rain had lessened to a light drizzle. Joe parked the car near the community center, a cozy brick building that had seen its fair share of laughter and tears over the years. A flicker of nerves danced in his stomach as he took in the sight of the empty lot. Would anyone show up? As he stepped out into the damp air, he spotted her across the way, standing under the awning, clutching a handful of colorful flyers. She looked both nervous and excited, an intriguing mixture of emotions reflected in her bright eyes. "Hey! You made it!" Joe called, walking toward her. "Of course," she replied, her voice stronger than he expected. "I'm a little worried though. I mean, what if no one shows?" "You've got this," he said, squeezing her shoulder in encouragement. "We just need to create the atmosphere. Little by little, we can turn this place into a sanctuary from the storm." They both hung a few flyers around the entrance, each piece of paper bearing a warm hand-drawn sun and details about their talent show. As they worked, whispers of the community began to stir. A mother pushing her stroller caught sight of the event poster, paused, and smiled. An older gentleman walking his dog stopped to read, nodding his head in agreement. "I guess the rain isn't keeping everyone inside," she said, a small smile spreading across her face. "See?" Joe replied, his own heart beginning to lighten. Just a little spark can ignite a fire. As the minutes turned to hours, people began to trickle in. Each one brought their stories, hesitation clinging to them like leftover rain. There was a middle-aged woman who held a guitar, a teenage boy with a sketch pad under his arm, and a grandmother with a collection of old folk tales she yearned to share. Joe felt a swell of pride watching them gather, their shared excitement cutting through their nerves. "Why don't you start us off?" He nudged the guitarist gently. "You'll set the tone for the rest." The woman looked hesitant, her eyes darting toward the floor. But with a comforting smile from Joe and a nod from the others, she took a deep breath. As her fingers brushed the strings, the haunting melody filled the room, weaving through each heart present. It was beautiful. When she finished, applause erupted, and a warmth engulfed the room. Joe felt his spirit intensify with the realization that they were more than just a collection of individuals, they were a community rising together, creating magic from their vulnerabilities. Each subsequent act felt like a gift shared among friends. The teenage boy's sketches inspired gasps of admiration, and the grandmother's tales sparked laughter and poignant nostalgia. They were taking risks, standing in the light together, and for each voice raised, the weight of their worries began to lift. But amid the joy, Joe couldn't ignore the shadows that lingered in not everyone's eyes. For every performer shining under the spotlight, others sat back, watching with a mix of admiration and jealousy. As the final act completed and the applause sounded, he turned back to the woman who had first sparked this idea. "Are we changing people's lives today?" he asked, observing the mixed expressions. Her hesitation returned. "What if it's not enough? What if all this just stays in this room?" Before he could formulate a response, the door swung open, and a couple of new faces came in, young parents with a toddler on each hip, looking uncertain and soaked from the rain. Yet, instead of retreating, they stepped forward, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Joe. "Is this the talent show?" the man asked, hope shining in his voice. "Yes," Joe exclaimed, stepping forward with genuine excitement. "We'd love for you to join us." As he gestured them inside, he caught his companion's gaze. "This is just the beginning," he whispered, a newfound fire igniting deep inside him. "It has to be." But as the energy swirled, both uplifting and raw, he couldn't shake a growing anxiety. What if this was just a single moment in time? What would it take to keep this connection alive beyond the walls of the community center? And as the first note struck up again, he realized that every question they didn't address, every worry that lingered too long, could just flip the tide all in the next heartbeat. What could happen if the storm outside didn't match the warmth inside? The evening wore on, and the rhythmic strumming of the guitar melded with laughter and applause, creating a tapestry of warmth that filled the community center. As Joe looked around, he saw faces illuminated with joy. Some were smiling broadly, while others wore a look of quiet contemplation. The toddler squealed in delight, her mother holding her protectively as they swayed to the music. A couple in the back whispered excitedly, their fingers intertwined, sharing stories of their own childhood moments. Each interaction felt magnetic, pulling them closer as a community. Yet, that sense of togetherness was a fragile thing. Joe couldn't help but notice the unease still flickering in others, an uncertainty that clung to the air. "Maybe it's like a wave," he mused out loud, turning to the woman who had sparked his vision. "Some moments will crash down hard, but they can also lift us up in ways we never expected." She nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "But what if we crash instead? What happens when the shows are over and everyone goes back to their lives?" Her eyes sparkled with fear but also a faint glimmer of hope. Joe leaned closer, feeling the urgency of the moment. Just because the show ends doesn't mean the connection has to stop. We've sparked something here. We can keep this fire alive. All we need to do is. His voice trailed off as he watched the audience. Suddenly, an idea struck him. What if we held regular events? Workshops, art classes, open mics, anything to keep us together. She blinked, absorbing his enthusiasm. That could work. Imagine the friendships that could blossom. But we need more support, more people to help. Her words hung in the air, resonating with the questions that swirled in Joe's mind. How could they attract more participation? How could they ensure the bond developed tonight didn't fray with time? As he looked back at the people in the room, he saw a flood of potential waiting to be unleashed. The older gentleman, who had been quietly observing, lifted his hand and cleared his throat. "I could host storytelling nights if folks would be interested. People love a good tale." Excitement surged through Joe. One voice joining another could create a chorus of ideas. "And I can organize painting nights." The teenage boy volunteered. "I know some kids who would love to paint." The rhythm of creativity was picking up a beat. A woman quickly chimed in, mentioning a local dance class. Each offering ignited fresh energy, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. There was enthusiasm buzzing, a shared electricity that danced among them, breaking down the walls they had built over the years. But Joe's heart beat a little faster as he thought about the logistics they now faced. Would they have enough time, resources, and, most importantly, enough people to sustain this momentum? As the applause for another performer rang out, he glanced at the door still open. A steady trickle of souls continued to enter, drawn in by the sound of lives intersecting, and it sparked a thrilling sensation in him. There were endless possibilities waiting just outside, yet he didn't want to lose sight of the vulnerable beauty they had created inside. "Let us make some noise then," he called out, grinning at his new family. "We've got to make sure our community thrives, and we're going to do it together." Cheers erupted, but beneath the surface, a tension remained. Was this just a fleeting moment, or could they build something lasting? As he leaned into that uncertainty, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real journey was just beginning. Above the chatter and excitement, a soft sound emerged, a murmur of encouragement, coupled with the clap of hands. Joe turned to catch the woman smiling, her eyes sparkling with both doubt and promise. "But what if it grows beyond us? What if we can't handle it?" Before he could reassure her, he felt a weight settle on his heart. What if they reached too far too fast? And as they celebrated tonight, it was hard to ignore the storm still brewing outside, waiting to test their resolve. What would that mean for their fragile dream? As the energy in the community center surged, Joe felt the pull of something real, a heartbeat thrumming with creativity and passion. He looked at the faces surrounding him. Some were glowing with ideas, while others still wore that veil of uncertainty. He understood, joy was easy to feel, but change that was a different beast entirely. The woman from earlier, her eyes bright with thought, spoke up again, "We can't forget about the people who might not feel included. How do we reach them?" "Good point," Joe replied, his mind racing. "What if we go out into the neighborhoods? Host pop-up events in parks or libraries. Bring the community to us, but also meet them where they are." A round of murmurs spread through the room like wildfire, and he saw heads nodding in agreement. The older gentleman smiled wider, "That's the spirit. I can spread the word, talk to folks who might be hesitant." Encouraged, Joe glanced around. Every voice mattered. He thought of the shy artist who sat in the corner, her paintbrush trembling as she dipped it. "And we can invite artists of all kinds. Not just from our community, but nearby towns too. Let us make it a celebration, a festival of sorts." Cheers erupted again, but with each clap, he felt that pressure inside him swell. They were building something beautiful, but beauty also invited storms. As laughter and chatter filled the air, a sudden chill swept through the room, causing Joe to pause. The door creaked ominously as a gust of wind blew in, stirring up the loosened papers on the tables. A few worried glances darted toward the entrance as additional guests shuffled in, their expressions drawn tight with concern. Joe noticed a tall woman leading the group. Her presence was commanding. "Thank you for what you're doing," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "But we're facing challenges outside that can't be ignored." Her eyes scanned the room, evolving from gratitude to an urgent plea. "Our community is hurting. We have families struggling, kids who go to bed hungry. This fire you're talking about, it needs to be a beacon, something that reaches deep down." A hush fell. Joe felt the weight of her words. It was a reality check that struck him square in the chest. They were inspired, yes, but what about those who needed the most help? What if we could combine these events with outreach? He suggested, voice trembling but resolute. A food drive alongside our celebrations. A toy swap during the art night. Let us use our creativity to lift others. Soft murmurs rippled through the crowd again. Was it enough? Could they really make a difference that mattered? Concerned brows wrinkled, and he sensed that nagging tension tightening like a noose. But what if we fail? Someone whispered from the back. The room felt smaller despite the influx of warm bodies. Joe looked at the faces, at the timid glances and determined nods. What if we succeed? He countered. What if this isn't just about us but about creating a safe space for everyone? We can make it happen together. His heart raced with the very real fear of taking on too much. The storm outside echoed his internal struggle. He sensed reluctance mixed with hope, a blend of excitement for the potential but also dread about the obstacles that lay ahead. He straightened up slightly, unwilling to let the shadows dictate their future. Everything we do will take effort, a community rooted in love. We will adapt, we will grow, and we will encompass everyone. And just as he finished, there was a loud clap of thunder reverberating from the distance. It pierced through the applause and laughter, bringing a sudden, eerie stillness. Joe held his breath, the air thick with anticipation. It felt like a warning. Would they have the courage to move forward together? Or would the impending storm wash away their dreams before they could even begin? With every ounce of determination he could muster, he spoke, a fire ignited in his belly. Let us step forward together. Let us dare to dream big, no matter the storm. The audience erupted in cheers once more, but the unease lingered like a cloud over them. Could they truly weather whatever was to come? As the cheers echoed in the community center, a wild energy crackled through the gathering, but the storm outside loomed larger than ever. Thunder clapped again, and for a moment, Joe's voice hung in the air, suspended between hope and worry. That woman's words echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of the lives affected beyond their walls. He looked around at the dozen faces lit by flickering overhead lights, each marked by anticipation but also doubt. We can do this, Joe reiterated, the words spilling out with a fervor that surprised even him. This isn't just an event, it's a movement. Together, we can help provide for those who are struggling. A man in the front raised his hand. I like the idea of combining celebrations with outreach, but how do we make it sustainable? One event won't change things, he said, his brow furrowed as he looked intently at Joe. That was the question pressing down like the weight of the world. Joe scratched his head, feeling the heat of scrutiny. You're right. We need to build a platform for ongoing support. He paused, his mind racing. What if we partner with local businesses? They can sponsor these events and donate goods. Maybe we can even create a community network for resources like a newsletter, updated regularly with ways people can help each other and find support. A murmuration of ideas filled the room as people began to weigh in, some nodding in agreement, others scribbling notes hurriedly. Joe felt a glimmer of relief wash over him. They were coming together, brainstorming ways to not only inject vibrancy into their community but also combat the very real issues lurking in the shadows. However, with each positive idea, he felt that gnawing fear returning, a reminder of the enormity of their undertaking. But organizing this, it's a lot, he said quietly, almost to himself. What if we get overwhelmed? And what if we don't reach those who need us the most? Silence hung heavy again, the weight of his admission palpable. The room seemed to shrink, a shared vulnerability weaving through the air. But then the shy artist from the corner spoke up, her voice steady although soft. Maybe we can reach out to schools, community organizations, we could have them be part of the planning, too. Kids and families can get involved. If we make this a collective effort, it might resonate more. Her words lit a spark in Joe's chest and brought a glimmer of hope back. Yes. Yes, we can engage the schools for their ideas. Kids are authentic. They can voice the needs of their friends. Nods of agreement spread like rays of sunlight breaking through clouds. He could feel the tension starting to lift, and a feeling of unity began to unfurl. As the night unfolded, they delved into brainstorming sessions, crafting plans and stuffing worries deeper into shared resolve. Ideas swirled around the room: food drives paired with art exhibits, sports events meant to draw in families, storytelling nights. Laughter wove into serious conversations, and slowly but surely, the air shifted as hope began to marinate in their hearts. But just as he started to breathe easier, another clap of thunder shook the building, striking fear into his soul again. Joe swallowed hard, mind racing with the realization that while they were dreaming big, reality outside was still harsh and unyielding. How would they reach those families in need when the skies themselves felt like a storm ready to unleash chaos? Joe felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders as he surveyed the room one last time. Let us not just bring this community together, let us be their voice. We can't let our aspirations drown out the realities so many are facing, he exclaimed, finding a newfound strength. We can create a ripple effect of kindness, something that lasts, something that resonates. The crowd erupted in a fresh wave of energy, an infectious buzz. Yet as the excitement filled the room, one thought gnawed at him. Would this all be enough? Could they truly be the beacon of hope when the storm outside threatened to overshadow everything they aimed for? With uncertainty flickering in his chest, Joe raised a hand. Let us not just prepare for a single celebration. This is just the beginning, right? Movement takes time, and it takes heart. We Haven Tea faced our real challenge, yet intrigued murmurs filled the community center. Everyone felt that the winds were changing, and they would have to weather whatever came their way together. Would they have the courage to keep pushing toward their vision, even as the storm drew near? The storm finally broke outside, rain pouring down, drumming against the roof and drowning out the fading notes of the last performer. In that moment, Joe felt as if nature itself echoed the uncertainty and excitement within the community center. As hands clapped and laughter rang out, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The energy was electric, voices intertwining, fabricating a tapestry of shared hopes, fears, and aspirations. Invigorated spirits soared, but Joe knew challenges loomed beyond the doors. We're on the same team, and together we can support each other, he urged, gathering everyone's attention. Let us face this storm, both within us and outside. A middle-aged woman stood, her voice rising above the chatter. I lost my job last summer. This community saved me and my kids. If we could help even one person in need, it will be worth every ounce of effort. Her eyes shimmered with determination, igniting a spark in the crowd. Yes. Joe echoed, heart racing. The strength lies within these walls and beyond. Let us reach people who may feel isolated. Let us turn our projects into bridges, connecting lives that might otherwise remain separate. As he spoke, the children in the room started to mimic his movements, pulling laughter from the adults. There was a realization lighting up their faces. This wasn't just about good intentions, it was about actions, transformations, and uniting to lift one another up. What if we create a community board? Suggested the shy artist from before, her eyes gleaming with newfound confidence. An interactive space where families can list needs, share offers for help, and connect personally. Brilliant. Joe replied, embracing the idea. Together, we can build a foundation that not just thrives in celebration but also stands ready in tough times. The chatter grew louder as everyone built off each other's excitement, enthusiasm blooming at every corner. Ideas flowed like a river, support groups, a monthly community meal, they even dreamed of a skills trade event where families could share their talents and help one another. As they wrapped up the night with a shared meal, Joe noticed that the weight of responsibility began to lessen. They were no longer just a group of individuals, they transformed into a warm circle of souls, bound by a common vision. But beneath all the joy, Joe could still sense that looming thunder. He knew that sustaining this effort would demand dedication and resilience. They would have to weather every storm together, supporting each other when the winds got tough. Guys, Joe said, looking around the table with gratitude, it's one thing to dream, but doing it takes heart. It's going to take every single one of us. Count on me, declared Frank, lifting his glass. Let us fill it with lemonade, compassion, and connection. Cheers erupted, a sound so vibrant it felt like a shield against the doubts that lingered. They were ready. A week later, the sun broke through the clouds, warm rays pouring down, replacing dreary skies with invigorating light. Families gathered in the park, the event filled with laughter and energy. Children painted, shared stories, and parents connected over countless shared experiences. Together, they made the centerpiece of the community tangible, a living testament that out of struggle came strength. But as the day drifted into the sunset, Joe felt the familiar storm of anxiety creep back. The questions hung in the air like the clouds before the rain. Would they keep the momentum going? Would they adapt as challenges arose? Remember. Joe called to the crowd. This is our moment. Tomorrow, we'll work toward something bigger. Let us meet every third Saturday for community events. We'll invite feedback from everyone on the things they believe we should prioritize. The noise crescendoed in approval. Everyone seemed energized, free from the weight of worry. It was more than a movement, it was a new beginning. As the final activities wrapped up, Joe turned to the woman who had first sparked the talent show idea. There, amidst the flurry of familiar faces, she had blossomed, becoming a pillar of support. "You did it," he said, grinning. "Your idea sparked a fire." Her eyes lit up. "You know, I never believed in myself before. But now, I'm seeing the difference we can make." Together, they walked, side by side through the park, eyes glimmering with dreams that reflected the golden light of the setting sun. "Tomorrow, we'll rise again," Joe declared, heart filled with gratitude. And as he sat among his community, a deep sense of human connection warmed him like nothing else could. They were creating a family forged in trials, one that not only embraced laughter but stood resilient against the storms of life. And in that moment, Joe knew nobody here was alone anymore. They had transformed fear into hope, doubt into action, and with every shared smile, they were pushing onward, together. So let us remember, this isn't just an end, it's a new beginning. You need to subscribe now to witness the incredible journey of real-life transformations. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below and share your feelings about this heartfelt journey. And don't wait not even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us build this community.